Up top.
And hello, all my cruising and travel fans. It's Rob here from Cruising on the High Seas and Travel. Today we have a very special guest joining me live here on this show. It is one of my dearest friends who I've met for many, many years in other live streams. Deborah, how are you doing here tonight?
Excellent. Hi, everyone.
So, Deborah is a very experienced person with traveling with animals, and it's simply because she has a CNIB dog, and she needs all these special documents when she cruises, and she can tell us all about it. So, can you tell us all about what you have to do to be able to go on these cruises?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to kind of correct you. It's not a CNIB. It's not a CNIB dog. It's a GEB. It's the Guiding Eyes for the Blind out of New York, Yorktown Heights, New York. So, and I am legally blind. I only have 4% vision in this eye. This one, nothing, because it's not real. And so I have to travel with a guide dog. Now, a guide dog is classified, of course, as a service dog, but you have to remember she's also a piece of disability equipment. So that allows her special privileges where other dogs, companion dogs, service dogs, may not get. The only places that she cannot go is a burn unit in a hospital or a preparation kitchen. Otherwise, she can go any place else that we go. To take her on a cruise, I have a cruise at the end of September, and starting the first week in August, I will start the paperwork that is necessary to get her on the ship. We are visiting Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, and all three of those have different forms that have to be filled out and criteria met. Different shots, and it all has to be administered and approved by a vet. The first thing we have to do is get a health check. All of her needles have to be up to date. And then there are different requirements for different islands. Like one might have to have a fecal examination to make sure that she's not carrying any internal parasites. Mexico, for instance, has to have a yearly rabies shot. She gets a 3-year rabies shot, but that's not good enough. She still has to go in and get it done every year if we go to Mexico. So I'm going to start at the beginning. First of all, I'm in Canada and I fly out of Buffalo, New York. So that requires me to get a form from the CDC, which is the
CDC Central.
It's a government firm, anyways, that they have to approve that she can cross. They have to give me approval for her to cross the border. I will also need one of those, another one filled out and dated at the day that we are departing the ship, because I have to have it to get back into the States after cruising. And then I have to have a DOT, which is the Department of Transportation form, that for her to be able to fly on the plane. We fly Southwest, and I would say 99% of aircrafts require this DOT form. And it's just a release form stating that I'm responsible for the dog. It's professionally trained. It has to be in uniform, and has to be under my control the whole time that we are in the airport and on the plane. These are requirements. Even if I wasn't going on a cruise, I'd have to enter the States and to fly. Then you have to go to the different islands. So Aruba has a form that has to be filled out by my veterinarian, stating that all of her needles are updated, um, to meet all the requirements. Then I have another one for I have to file, and that has to be filed with Carnival, with Aruba, and the ship. And then I have to do the same thing for Bonaire. It's a separate pieces of paper and forms, and then the same with Curacao. Now I'm not sure if any of those are high rabies areas. If there is, for example, on our last cruise on the Vista last March, I had to have a CDC form to get across the border, to get on the ship, to enter San Juan, Puerto Rico, to enter St. Thomas, and then to enter the States again. And now that's 5 of the same forms, and they have to be filled out and dated appropriately for each day that I'm going to be visiting or leaving the ship. And then again, for the second week of the cruise, I had to do the same thing. And the DOT form, I have to have one going to Florida and one for coming home, and they have to be dated appropriately. The cruise lines only allow service animals, and that animal has to do an explicit duty that the handler cannot do. It can't be a companion dog or anything. They're not allowed on a cruise ship. Now, there is one or a couple that sail out of England, I believe, that do allow pets on the ship. But those pets are held in kennels in a particular area, and the owners can only go visit them once or twice a day. Otherwise, there's people on there to take care of them. On a cruise ship, the dog stays with you 24/7. You're responsible for all of her food, and she gets fed in the cabin. Now, some of the ships will put a relief station on my balcony. Other ones have it outside someplace. The XL class, like the Mardi Gras, they have, and Celebration, they had it outside the casino, a relief area, which was funny because, and of course, Glenna knows the different areas. So I would be walking along and ask her, do you need to go to the casino? And if she got excited and started walking faster, I know she had to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, I'll ask her, and she'll head for, like, there's always 3 sets of elevators on the ship, and she'll head to the appropriate set of elevators to go to our cabin. She'll tell me where the buttons are, but not inside she doesn't know the floors. But if I say, where's the buttons, she'll stand sideways in front of the elevator button so I can press them. And then she'll go in and run right to the patio doors, because we always have a patio, or balcony, I should say. And I just open the balcony and she goes out and relieves herself. She knows the difference between crew and passengers. For the most part, she knows that crew is allowed to, I have her spoiled. Crew are allowed to pet her because they're missing their own pets. And they do so much on the ship and are on for such an extended time that I share. If we get room service, they actually argue in the kitchen who's going to bring us the order, because they know that she's out of harness at that point and they can play with her. So it's real.
It's their fun time.
Yeah, and it's really cute when we're walking down the hallways or anything like that. No, hi Glenna, hi Glenna. Oh hi. They know her name. They'll call her by name, but I just get, oh hi. So, as I said, the food is kept I keep it in the cabin, and she's fed appropriately in there. She's allowed in any of the areas except well, we had to go to the hospital, the medical area on one of the ships for my mother. She was allowed down there. She's allowed in the general area, but there's operating rooms and surgical rooms. She would not be allowed into those. And I mean, there's a ship tour that you can see the kitchens, the backstage.
Yeah.
I can't do that because she can't go into the kitchens. But in the dining room, she comes in and she lays down either underneath the table facing out, or she lays down beside me. After the first day, I'll go on the ship and I'll ask, show me where my table, can you show me where my table is, please? Oh, well, we're not set up yet. And I said, oh, we're not open. I said, oh, I know you're not open. I just need to know where I'm going to sit. So tonight when you're busy, I can have my dog take me to my chair. Oh, this we have to see. So they'll take me to my chair. I sit down in a few minutes and have her lay beside me. I get up and I thank them and I leave. So now we're coming in the evening into the dining room. And they went, oh, watch, I want to see this. I want to see this. And I'll say, Glenna, take me to my chair. And she takes me all the way through the dining room. And they went, the dog knows where her table is and we don't. We've also had servers trying to find her table. And I said to him, I said, can you not find her table? And he said, well, that's okay. I'll find it. I said, no problem. Glenna, take me to my chair. Off she went. He went, the dog knows it and I don't.
Yeah.
She knows where the ice cream machines are because she knows that at least once a day, she gets an ice cream. If we've gone ashore, Lord help us if we want to go to the cabin before she gets her ice cream. She gets her ice cream first. I can tell her that I'm hungry and she'll take me to a set of elevators knowing that we have to go up to deck 10 to get food. I don't know what else to... Oh, when we're flying, because we fly Southwest and they don't have assigned seating. And the last time was cute because the woman said to me, the gate attendant said, oh, hold on and we'll have somebody walk you to the plane. I went, oh no, Glenda knows the way. And she went, what? I said, Glenda knows where she's going. And she'll walk me down the chute. The woman said, oh, I got to see this. So Glenda walked me down the chute. And when I'm transitioning from the chute to the plane, I have to let her go because I have to have assistance. I can't navigate that. And I just say, go to my chair. And off she goes and she turns around into the bulkhead and sits down and waits for her harness to come off. She'll lay at my feet the whole time until they bring the treats around. And then she says, oh, I get one too. But she knows where I can tell her to take me to a ladies' room in a busy airport. And she'll find the ladies' room for me. And then I can tell her to take me back to my chair and she'll take me back to wherever I was seating.
That's extremely impressive.
Yeah, she's highly intelligent.
Yeah. Anyways, let's welcome in some of the viewers. First in the chat was Cheryl Boucher. Welcome on in. Followed by her husband, Jeremy Boucher. And both of them are from the great state of Texas.
Oh.
And right now they are out of Galveston. So they are like, really, I call it down the block to the Galveston cruise port because Galveston is a very small island. So they, I speak to them almost pretty much every single day, a few times a day. And they are even showing me the buildup of the brand new MSC terminal. So they're very great friends of mine. And we're going to jump down to the next person who has just entered into the chat. And then there's a question there in the chat for you too. So the next person came into the chat was Mama Najuma Brown from New York. I think you know her. I think you know her. She does pop in and out through many multiple chats that streams that are around. And now to the question that is there for you from Jeremy Boucher is asking, what is the longest cruise you've been on?
14 days. We did a back-to-back.
So that's what, a 7, and then the 7 again.
No, it's an 8 and a 6.
Oh, okay.
And they're both different itineraries.
Yes, that is very well good, because you really don't want to be going back to the same ports.
Well, we've been back to some of the ports numerous times, and what that does is that she remembers where everything is. For example, when we went to Costa Maya, she remembered where. Now, the ports that we've been to, she also remembers, bless you, remembers the relief areas where I take her to relieve herself. So if she has to go, she'll start walking me there. But in Costa Maya, they did used to have this back part that had these little kind of fountains spitting out of the ground, and she loved playing in it. And I swear, the one time she used it for bidet, and everybody was just hooting because here's this dog squatting over this little shoot up of water, using it like a bidet to wash herself. But no, she remembers. Even if we do repeat a port, she remembers where she's going.
Yep. And I remember, if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but long time ago, we've had a conversation about when you are, say, like in the hallway of on a cruise ship, and someone wants to pet. You mentioned that, if I remember correctly, it said you have to remove the harness for them to know that she can be petted. Because
Correct.
with the harness on, she's in like service mode.
She's in work mode. If she's got the harness on, that means she's working. And even if she's laying down beside me, it still means that she's working, because that's really hard for her to have to ignore the people. But the reason being is that if you stop and pet her or talk to her, especially when I'm moving and I can't see where I'm going. And I've had on the one time on a cruise ship, a gentleman called her, and I wasn't paying attention because he was kind of out of my sight, like out of my area. And she went around a post to see, because he was sitting at a table and I think he was trying to give her something. And she's a lab, she's going to eat. She went around, and I walked into the post. Now the gentleman felt really, really bad. He found out the hard way you don't call a guide dog, because if they're distracted, the handler gets hurt, can get hurt, and can get hurt seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a bunch of people around, and I'll ask them, do you want to meet her? And if they say yes, then I'll take her harness off. And then she knows the difference, because all I have to do is say, go see. And then she's a dog. She wants to go see everybody. And I always laugh because I tell them she can't hold her liquor. She's a kid. She's a kissy dog. And she loves seniors and small children. Now, if I have a bunch of children around, I was in Walmart the one time and I heard all these kids going, I want to pet the dog. I want to pet the dog. So I went into I was walking through an express checkout, self-check, I think, and I could hear the kids around there. So I just went back and sat in the middle and took her harness off, and I come and had them come over and meet her. And I explained to her what she does and what the harness symbolizes. I related the handle that I have to hang it onto as the steering wheel in a car. Your mom turns the steering wheel and the car goes that way. I can feel that in the harness, and if Glenna goes to the right or the left, I can feel that and follow her. And she knows, basically, if I talk to her, she knows what. Today, we were out front of the house, and I told her that she was going too far down the driveway, and I said, you get to the house now. And she went into the house and laid down. And everybody, because my daughter was having a garage sale here, and they were just like, the dog knows that you told it to go into the house. I said, yeah.
Yep.
And then the thing is, I expect her to listen. We've been partners for 6 years, so she knows what I'm meaning.
Yep. All right. So some of the questions / points that I came up with, and some of the items that we've already started to talk about. The first one was which cruise lines allow pets versus service animals. Most cruise lines don't allow pets, but
Right.
service animals like guide dogs are usually accepted. Which lines support each? So,
For the greater majority, the passenger cruise lines, especially out of the US, cannot deny a service dog, especially a guide dog, because we're protected by the ADA and not ADA, CDC.
CDC.
CDC, I had the wrong letters before. And so, any place a normal person can go or I can go, the dog is allowed. Because, as I said previously, she is classified as a part of a disability equipment. You would not ask a person that's in a wheelchair to leave their wheelchair at home, so you can't ask me to leave my dog at home. Um, and as I said, there's a couple, I think, out of England, but those are long distant voyages crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific, and they allow pets to come on, but they're held in a separate place. They don't stay with the owners.
Yeah.
But no cruise ship will allow a pet on.
Yeah. All right. And the second one that I came up with is what link rights do service animals have? Pets are optional companions, while service animals are protected under disability laws. What does that mean for cruising?
For cruising, it means they can't refuse us. If I have the proper documentation and I've met all the criteria of all the ports that we're going to be entering, they cannot refuse us to entry on the ship. And so, like I said, all the paperwork that I fill out, I send a copy into the carnival. I send a copy for each individual island. I also have a copy of all the paperwork for getting on and off the ship, all the ports and everything for the port officials when we're checking in, so that they can see that it's all completed also. Um, you, I have seen a service dog that I would have questioned whether it was a service dog on one. It was on the MSC ship because it was supposed to be. I don't know what it was for because it was so intimidated by everything on the ship. It was shivering the whole time. It was scared. But we have had other dogs that on the ship at the same time as us. And you will tell a trained service dog, a professionally trained service dog, especially a guide dog, they don't bark. They don't act up. They behave. Now, Glenna will, if there's a small one, because we had a Shih Tzu, and she was good friends with it, and say, "Oh, you want to play with me?" But if she sees a large service dog, there's no reaction, especially if I tell her to leave it.
Yeah. Previously we've already start talking about documents, but what documents are needed for pets versus service animals? Pets need vaccination records and more. Service animals usually no certificate required. What really needed?
Okay, let me just show you. I should have pulled it out earlier. Not that one. Okay. That's the documentation that I carry with me. You can see how thick the binder is. It has everything in it that pertains to Carnival, pertains to each island. It has her certificate of health. It has the certificate of where she was trained, her graduation certificate, everything. I carry that binder I carry on all my cruises. Each cruise has its own. I can't reproduce it because it's all dated.
Yeah. And to me, I have a binder similar to that, and I call that binder the book of everything.
Yeah.
Because literally, when I'm going through customs, if they ask me a question, I know exactly where in the binder I need to look because it will be in its appropriate slot.
Yeah.
So I know where to find it. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying, like, it sounds like for yours, like, I'm not trying to flip through it and try and find, oh, where is this?
Oh, see, now I have that one that will go on to that'll be packed into my carry-on, but I have a copy of all the singular pages to hand the port officials so that they can see that all the documentation is in order. And then I take a copy of all of them again to guest services, just in case Carnival didn't, the head office didn't forward the paperwork. They have a copy. Getting off the ship at each port, I have a copy of her certificate of health, her vaccination, her rabies. It's there's a titer test, which is a test, a blood test that has to go to Texas to find out if she has the rabies serum in her system. And as long as there's no breaks in the uh, medication given each month, that, excuse me, it's good for the life of the dog. And that there's like 10 pages that I carry with me off and on each island too, because if a port official stops me, I have to have it available for them, because some of the islands are really particular, and I have to contact them on every cruise to find out if they have changed any of their paperwork. Bahamas is one. They used to waive uh, the fee to register the dog to come on the island, which by law they should anyways, but it's a U.S. law, not a Bahamian law. So in order to get off the ship, I have to pay $30 for the Department of Agriculture to review her paperwork, and then guest services will have me come down. I've been down there as early as 6:30 for the port officials to come on the ship to examine her. Usually they just look at her and go, "Is that the dog?" Yep. Okay. Well, she's fine, because they look at her condition and how obedient she is and that sort of stuff. So they don't, they, but we have to be cleared before anybody can get off the ship. And I have to have all the paperwork in order and handed in to Carnival and guest services, like I say, before I can get on the ship, because otherwise the ship cannot enter that island's waters. It has to be filed
Oh,
prior.
that's so it's very strict
Yeah,
rules.
yeah. Um, MSC was a little bit more lenient, but Carnival is really particular and make sure that they have all their I's and dotted and their T's crossed when they're going into the different waters. Now, the last cruise we went on, we were supposed to be getting off at Grand Turk. All of my paperwork was in order, but the Department of Agriculture did not process it. So I was not permitted off the ship. And the port official that was on the ship, I'm sitting there when they're talking to the guest service manager and everything. And she got really nasty and she said, "You let that woman and her dog off the ship and we're going to fine you $50,000. And I'm going, I'm not getting off the ship. If I'm not permitted, I'm not getting off. I'm not breaking the law.
But on top of that, you also need Glenn.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I cannot leave the dog on the ship unescorted. I can't leave it in my cabin, and I can't take it ashore. So that means we both stay on the ship.
correct.
So
I mean,
that's a, it,
you're caught between the rocks. So you're stuck staying on board.
yeah. And Aruba did that to me one time, and now Grand Turk did it. And
Yeah.
Grand Turk is the one that requires the tighter test. And as a Canadian, it cost me $400 to have that test completed.
Ouch. And that's all extra on top of the typical cruiser's paying because you're still paying the typical cruiser's amount plus the extra fees for
Oh
the
yeah, and usually for me to go on a cruise, the first cruise of the year will cost around $1,000 in vet uh, costs with shots and um, different criteria that we have to make. So on top of the cruise fare, I have to put out anywhere from $600 to $1,000 in order to have clearance for Glenna to get on the ship. So it's not free.
Nope. All right. The fourth question I came up with was where can pets versus service animals go on board? Pets are often restricted to kennels
Yeah,
where service dogs can go almost anywhere. What does
that's that's correct.
access look like? And
It, it means
as we already covered that stuff
yeah,
already.
wherever I go, the Glenn is right beside me.
So basically, like, and then of course like, she can't go down into like the galley and
Correct.
like the morgue operation areas.
Yes.
They need to keep it sanitary.
Yes. Yes. Well, no, she could go into the. She actually could go into the medical facilities. They are actually allowed. Um, I now when I had my one eye surgery, I wanted to have my other guide dog with me, and in recovery. And the doctor said, I know he's permitted in here, but may I ask you for him to stay out in the waiting room because of allergies and dander and that. And I went, yes. You asked me politely, I'm going to comply. You tell me you're running against a Scotsman and you're going to get the bullheadedness.
Exactly. Okay. And the fifth one, before we go to our next question, is can service dogs join you for dinner? Pets aren't allowed in restaurants, but service dogs can accompany their handler. What are the requirement rules?
That they are registered, recognized service dog or guide dog. They have to be in uniform, which means that she has to have her harness on. Um, and I was refused entry into a dining room, and I said, under the ADA, the CDC, she's allowed to go wherever I go. So now, are you personally refusing me? Because that's a $5,000 fine. Or is the company refusing me? That fine starts at 25,000. So you choose which one you want to go with, and then tell me I can't come in. They always allow us in.
as soon as you mentioned about the 5,000, it's like
Yeah.
because I imagine that 5,000 is from their own pocket.
Correct.
So it's like, yeah, I'm not paying $5,000. Just go on in.
And plus, I carry cards with me. I have no problem showing anybody my ID from the school that shows it's a picture of Glenna and I when we graduated. I will flip that ID open. I have no problem showing that. Um, I also have, if they're questioning me about what the law is, I have a card that is in her harness that states what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So if they're not educated, I will help educate them.
And just let them know what they can't do.
And you cannot by law, the only thing you can ask a person about a dog is what service does that dog perform for you? That's
Okay.
the that's the only question that people are allowed to ask.
And if they ask anything outside of the box, what occurs?
Well, some people will push the issue and go to the um, into the law that I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, they will take it and file a complaint. Um, Myself, I mean, I've been asked, is that a service dog? And I'll just turn around and say, yes, she's my eyes. Oh, okay, and that's it. I mean, I'm not going to get nasty to people that don't know. If you come up to me and you're demanding and being rude to me, then you will be told. Um, I was at a grocery store a couple weeks ago, and a woman ran into me with the grocery cart. Had she hit Glenna, that would have been a different story. But she ran into me, and I went, "Oh!" She didn't stop, didn't say I'm sorry, but a man that was standing there went after her. So it's like, well, I'm not going to give it double barrel to it. He's taking care of it.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
yeah, because on my previous dog I had, um, his harness looked pretty much the exact same thing as a service dog's harness, and it had his name along the side. And I remember one time I was asked, "Is that a service dog?" And I went, "No, it's not a service dog. It just looks like a service harness that we found that we could buy online."
that those I have to be honest with you, those upset a person that legitimately needs a service dog, like a guide dog, especially upsets us because a lot of people will put those type of harnesses on dogs that are not trained to be out in public. They'll be nasty. They're barking. They're growling. They're just they shouldn't. At that point, the people should be asking, what service does this dog perform for you?
Correct.
And if it doesn't perform any explicit service, then it's a pet or a
Yeah.
companion dog,
Yeah.
and it falls in a different bracket. Yeah,
Yeah, but of course, just for the record, it on nowhere on the harness did it ever say service dog.
right.
It just had his name, and
Yeah,
I believe his phone number.
yeah, and most people that have a service dog, like a guide dog or something like that, will not advertise the dog's name because they don't want people calling it. So they're not going to have the dog's name onto a harness or a vest or anything like that. So that's another way you can tell
Yeah,
whether it's a service dog or not.
yeah, and of course the reason why we had it on him was because he was a polar. So when you have it, the leash connected to their collar, it can be harder on you on your arm because if they're it's connected to their body, like around their waist line,
With the harness.
like
Yeah.
then you have a little bit more control of it.
Yeah. See now, um, the she's still on a steel collar when we're working. She knows the difference between her collars too. Right now, she's on a it's a nylon one with a little bit of a chain on it, but she knows that's her play harness or her play collar. The other one that we put on, the steel one, is her work collar. But basically, I'm not holding on to that. She's pulling, but I'm holding onto the harness because she's got to pull to show
Yeah,
me where to go.
yeah,
So that's the difference on the harnesses also.
yeah. And then we have another question in the chat for you,
Mhm.
and it's from Jeremy again. He's asking, does your pet insurance cover any of the costs?
No, but I am able to declare a lot of the costs on income tax. because I have to. It's under the Disability Act because I have to use a dog to get around.
Yeah. All right. And before we go on to the next question, we are going to play the promo for an upcoming cruise, which is this October out of the port of Tampa for the Booze Cruise 3.0. Here it
Oh,
is.
The Booze Cruise 3.0, hosted by Rob from Cruising on the High Seas and Travel. Ports of call: Costa Maya, Mexico; Roatan, Honduras; Belize City, Belize; Cozumel, Mexico; out of Tampa, Florida; Costa Maya, Mexico; Roatan, Honduras; Belize City, Belize; Cozumel, Mexico. Aboard the Grandeur of the Seas out of Tampa, Florida. Sailing October 25 to November 1, 2025. Book today for this amazing sailing with any travel agent.
And yes, that is the Booze Cruise 3.0 this year on Grandeur of the Seas out of Tampa, Florida. So if you're interested, please reach out to any travel agent or even myself, and we will get you booked on board. And the next question we came up here with is, how do port rules differ from pets and service dogs? Ports may quarantine pets, but some exemptions training service animals. What should cruisers know ahead of time?
usually if you're cruising, the if you're visiting an island with a pet, there will usually there is a quarantine time, but when you're cruising, you're only there for usually under 12 hours, and it's a service animal, and they recognize the difference. So it won't go into quarantine because you're only there for that explicit time. You're not staying there. But again, there's a criteria if you're taking a pet to visit any of these islands, um, that you have to meet. I know my daughter-in-law had a black lab that was cruising, and she had to file all of the paperwork also. Um, and now she had it. There was a fee included because it was just a pet, uh, that to register for each island that she had to pay. We don't pay that with a guide dog.
Yeah, because they're working for you.
Right.
Yeah. All right. The next one I came up with was, what should you pack for a pet versus service dog? Form, food, and pads to harness and ID. Packaging list varies. What essentials for each?
I think basically your essentials would be the same for a pet or, um, a service dog because you need their food and that kind of stuff. So for myself, when I'm cruising, of course, I have to carry her food enough for 14 days or however long. I usually, okay, we're going on an 8 day. So I will take enough food for 12 days, just in case anything happens, a breakdown on the ship or late getting into port. I always carry extra food. And I take the dishes for her to be fed in. I take a blanket and I take a couple toys so that we can play in the room with her and toss them so she can run some of her energy off. I've been fortunate because I usually, not that I use the facilities, but I go up to the spa, and there always seems to be one person there that wants to play with her. So I take her harness off and they run up and down the hallway and get her energy out of her. I've also taken her to the ball court, and because I'll ask them, like, can I let her in for like 5-10 minutes? That's all she's going to take, just to run some energy off. And she's very, very friendly. You know, I tell them the whole 9 yards. And we did that on the Glory. And they were kind of hesitant first. But then when they seen that she just wanted to play with everybody, and she was chasing they were playing basketball, and she would jump up and take the basketball and headbutt it away from them. It was keeping them. So it was a game of tag with them. And they really enjoyed it. They said, "Oh, come back anytime." And then another time she found out that the volleyballs were softer and she could get her mouth on it. I think she flattened the one. I felt really bad. But no, they, for the most part. And then I've also had where I went to guest services, and they gave me one of the rooms that there was nothing happening in for her to run around some energy off of. So the ship is usually very compatible and will help with situations like that. The only one that I have found that has not been was the carnival celebration. And I have no idea why, but all it takes is one person in guest services to like dogs, and then you're pooched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would imagine she has her own suitcase.
I have a backpack that I carry, and I got that from the school. It's a big, and it has the name of the school on it and everything. She carries that. Her food goes in there, and her bedroll, her dishes, her toys, they all fit in there. Yeah. So I know when I'm flying, you're only allowed one carry-on and a personal item. So they just laugh out because I'll say, "This is my carry-on. This is Glenna's carry-on." Because I do not check the food. I keep the food with me. I will not check it in on an airplane, nor will I check it in on a ship. It stays with me.
Because heaven forbid it goes MIA.
Yeah.
You're up that quick without a paddle.
Yeah, and I don't want to feed her people food.
Yeah, like unfortunately I've been up that paddle before with my tech bag, my Glory's tech bag. It somehow didn't make my flight where I was going to.
Oh.
Because quick story of it was we were leaving here in Toronto, and we were working our way towards New Orleans. Well, we got to Charlotte, the flight got delayed, and it was delayed long enough where we'd end up missing the ship. So we had to go from Charlotte to Atlanta to Mexico City to some other Mexico port, spend the night there to catch up with the ship the following day.
Wow.
We had about 5 bags, and that was the only bag that didn't get pulled from the flight.
Huh.
So we had to catch up with it in New Orleans.
Well, at least you ended up catching up with it.
Yeah, after the cruise was done.
Yeah, the weirdest one was when we were going to Miami, and we were flying out of Orlando. And we had to go Orlando, Nashville, Tennessee, Miami. Because they didn't have a full plane going to Miami. And so they put us on to go to Nashville. Nashville, we get to Nashville and it's canceled. The flight was delayed and then it was canceled. And we're panicking. And I'm going, what do I do now? And I went up to Southwest counter and said, I just heard that our flight was canceled. What happens now? I said, and they looked at my boarding pass. They said, "Debbie, you traveling alone?" I said, "No, I'm in with my mother. She's in the wheelchair over there." And they, "Oh, okay, no worries. We put you priority one. You're on the next plane." And I went, "Okay." Well, then everybody else hit the roof. How come they get priority one? And they're telling them, because we have a blind person and a handicapped person. They go priority. Well, that's not fair. I paid just as much. People are crazy.
Yeah.
So, but we had to do that change about to go on a 90-minute flight. It took us all day.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate. We haven't lost any bags. But I would not put her food, check her food in because of that, in case it come up missing.
Yeah. And for me, what I always say is, I could care less if you lose my bag. But if you're going to do it, please do it on the way home.
Yeah.
Do it on the way home.
Yeah.
You'd be doing me a favor. Because once I'm done work, all I got to do is go to the service counter, claim it, and off I go home.
One thing that I do want to mention is travel insurance. I do take travel insurance. I do have travel insurance that also includes Glenna. So that if for some reason I have to be flown home, she flies with me.
That's very well great advice to have.
Yeah.
Because, God forbid something does occur, it's not a cheap bill.
No. And of course, if they're going to airlift me off the plane or from a cruise port, they're not going to drop her off at a port that I don't know anything about. I'm not leaving her on an island. So she has to go with me. So I have to take special insurance out for that.
Yeah. All right. The next question that we have is how must pets and service animals behave on board? Service dogs must be under control and trained. Pets usually kenneled. What are the exceptions?
We keep trying to compare pets and service animals, but they're two different entities.
Yeah.
Service animals, you can usually, like I said, you can usually tell a trained service animals by the way they behave. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that a guide dog can be a service dog, but a service dog cannot be a guide dog. For the simple reason that the training is so immense for a guide dog, where a service dog, it's not that explicit. It's I don't know how to explain it. That's what this school had told me, that the differences. Now, a guide dog can be trained for both service and guiding, but a service dog is usually explicit to whatever that person has.
To what that person needs.
A guide dog, at least the school that I got Glenna from, they go into a puppy raiser's house and start their training at 8 weeks old. And they're there for 12 to 14 months. And that's where they get their basic obedience, their socialization. A lot of the preliminaries are done in a puppy raiser's home. Then they go back to the school for 4 to 6 months and are trained explicitly to be a guide dog. Glenna's sister was 3 weeks out of being certified, and she failed the test, the IFT test, for the third time. So she was re-careered. She could not be a guide dog. But needless to say, the TSA picked her up for a scent dog. because these dogs are so highly trained. The school actually puts a value on her of $80,000 US.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of time and work just to build into what it
Yes.
takes to be a service slash guide dog.
Yes.
And they really have to, it's either pass or fail.
Correct. They get 3 chances. On the third chance, if they don't pass, they're pulled from the service.
And then redeployed into something different.
Yes. And 9 out of 10 times, unless it's a medical reason, 9 out of 10 times if they fail the testing, they have, at least Guiding Eyes has a waiting list for these dogs. Like with Glenna's sister, because she kept smelling everything. She would not stop smelling. So the TSA took her and now she's a scent dog. And a lot of the other organizations like that are on a waiting list for dogs that fail the testing, the final testing, because they're so highly trained. They're still paying a pretty penny for them, even for a retired guide dog that could be 8, 9, 10 years old. You're going to, my understanding is that you could pay $2,500 for adoption.
And that's American dollars?
Yes.
Yeah. And do they hold a lifespan of how long they can do services guide for?
It depends on the actual dog. There have been dogs that have decided they don't want to do it 6 months after starting, 18 months after starting. There's been dogs that have been trained that are still guiding at 11 years old. It depends on the actual dog. As long as they're able to work, they're able to guide. And usually at the age of 9, 10 years old, the school will send out a field rep to review how the dog's working.
So basically just to requalify.
Not to recall or qualify. They just want to touch base to see how the dog's working, to make sure that it's still safe for the client. My first guide dog that I had, he was a big yellow boy, my boo boy, and he was phenomenal. But we had taken him for an eye test, and he had an eye problem. And because it was registered he had this issue, they pulled him from service. Because if anything had happened, we had an accident or anything, they could go back on the school because of this issue. So they give us a pittance of, well, now it's $600 a year to go towards the vet bills and that sort of stuff. And so all of the reports, the veterinarian reports, are sent into the school. So they review them all the time, every time a paper comes in, to make sure that the dog is fit to work.
Okay. And the second last question we have lined up is, are there relief areas for pets and service dogs, which ships offer have relief areas for service dogs, pets not likely? How do you handle bathroom needs at sea?
Okay, they have a relief station, which is usually a 4x4 box, metal box, and it's filled with paper pellets. The first time that Glenna got to use those was on the Mardi Gras, on the inaugural cruising of Mardi Gras, and it was outside the casino. She had to relieve herself. I know she did. And so I wanted to go out to the deck outside the casino. They were refueling. They were refusing me to go out there. And I said, if she has an accident in the ship, you're responsible for it. And okay, so they're going to let me out on that deck where they're refueling. Now there was 5 I'm going to say officers because I could see the white shirts standing around us. They like huddled us down to the relief area and stood around. Now, Glenna didn't want to get in there. And I'm going, you can walk on this stuff. I stood on it. I got in there and said, okay, now come in and get busy. Then I stepped out. They're all laughing. And I'm thinking, why are you blocking my view from what you're doing? I'm blind. I can't see what you're doing. But and then on that the XL class, I was okay. But then when I went on to the lower class ships, they had us outside on deck 4. And if we're moving and there's any kind of wind or something, I'm no spring chicken. I can't get the doors open. So then they put it on my balcony. So I have actually it's not a 4x4. I think it's a 3x4 relief station on my balcony for her. And they give us tongs, I guess, to pick up the poop and a garbage pail. And then the room steward, cabin steward, takes care of anything that's in the pail. Well, I carry poop bags with me. So it's put in a poop bag in that pail. So they're like, oh, thank you. We're not after dealing with dog poop. It's all secured and tied up.
It just makes their job a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus, it's my dog. I'm going to clean up after it. And for me to pick up after her, I can tell because she'll weave back and forth that she has to take a poo. And then when she starts squatting, I run my hand down her back, put my foot by her back leg, pray that she doesn't do it on my foot. And then when she moves, I know it's at the end of my foot to pick it up.
Yeah, so you kind of have a guide point of
Yeah.
where you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just turn the bag inside out and then just pick it up.
Yeah. All right, and the last one that we came up with is, do essential supply animals count as service dogs? Most cruise lines treat ESA as pets, not service animals. What's the key difference?
I'm not sure what an ESA.
I was trying to look up ESA Urchin. I couldn't find out what ESA is.
No, I'm not familiar with that term either. For cruise lines, you have to prove that it's a certified service dog, a guide dog, and that's done by my vet. And plus, I've been asked for the graduation pic. Do I have proof that she's been trained in a school, which I have the great big certificate that I have a photocopy of that I take with me, stating her name, my name, and the date we graduated, that we trained together.
Yeah. So as we have gone through for the whole entire hour, we talked about the differences between having a service guide dog versus a normal animal. There's obviously a difference between those two.
Yes.
And
for example, I was in the grocery store last night here at home, and a woman had a small dog in that grocery cart. I could see a little bit, so I could see, and it was growling. And my mother said something about the dog. I said, that does not have a service vest on it. It's not a service dog. It should not be in the grocery store. They make it hard for people with service dogs to come in.
Yeah.
Now, when I go into a grocery store, because I usually shop at the same one, I can tell Glenna, let's go get bananas, and she'll take me to the bananas, so then I know I'm in the fruit. Or I need milk, and she'll take me where the milk is. There's key things that she knows where they are. She can find me an elevator, an escalator, stairs, a chair, someplace to sit down. She'll find me someplace to sit down if I need to.
Yeah, and the way I always put it, it's the rotten apples spoil it for the good apples.
Yeah.
So the ones that really need it pay the consequences for the ones that just kind of abused the fact.
Yeah, and I mean, I was in another store one time, and now, mind you, the dog was very, very well behaved. And I asked the guy, I said, "Oh, what do you have this service dog for?" And he says, "You don't have the right to ask me that." I said, "No, I know I don't, but I have a service dog." So, and you can see it's a guide dog for my eyes. I was just wondering. He was rude. He said, "It's none of your business." I said, "Okay, your choice. I was just trying to be nice."
Try to be nice, be friendly, but
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, everybody around us was frowning at him because I still don't know what his dog was trained for. And these people that have dogs that are, they figure are highly trained, will stay beside them, and they don't have a lead on them, really, really bothers me because that dog can break at any minute. And my guide dog is in jeopardy then. Um, and you can't tell me that they never will, because prior to me getting a guide dog, I was being escorted by airport personnel through the airport. This happened at the Buffalo airport, and we were talking about dogs and that sort of stuff, and she was saying, "Oh, they have it was a Brittany Spaniel. I forget what he did. Would I like to meet him?" I said, "Oh, I love to meet him because I love dogs." And so she took me to the officer, and I said, "May I pet?" And he said, "Yes." So I'm talking to him and petting the dog at the same time and talking to the dog and everything. This is a professionally trained dog. Now, I don't know, like I said, it could have been a scent dog. I have no idea what that dog was doing, but it was a police dog, highly trained. When I walked away, the dog went with me. And he had to come yell at the dog and come after. He says he's never done that. In 5 years of service, he's never followed a person and went with them. And I went, "Well, I just like dogs."
I just got that touch.
Yeah, but the reason I said that is because here is a professionally trained police dog, and it broke protocol. So you never know when your dog's going to break protocol, no matter how well they're trained.
Yeah, I know exactly, because even with mine, like I said, they're not trained to be service animals, and they will sometimes take off on us, but they know they only go so far, and then after that distance, they don't go any further.
Right.
Unless they get the command saying it's okay to proceed.
No, I usually start yelling her name and touch, because touch means that she comes up and touches my hand, so I know she's there.
Yeah, like I think the furthest we had one get was top of the street, and they just sat because they know which way we went.
Yeah, I used to have a kennel of Alaskan Malamutes, and I was out in the country, and they knew they couldn't go on the road. And Sapeo was playing with the kids the one time and ran down the driveway, and she ended up on the other side of the road. No matter how much anybody called her, even myself, she just stood there and whined. I had to go over it with a lead and put a lead on her, and then she'd come across the road because she knew she wasn't to go on the road.
Correct.
So they know, but occasionally protocol is broken, and you never know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. But anyways, we are above the top of the hour, and that covers this amazing topic. So I'd like to thank you for coming on by and talking about this topic with us today.
Not a problem. And at the same time, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or needs help filling out some papers and that sort of stuff, or where to find them. Reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all again, and we will see you all next week on. I'm not sure what topic we'll be covering, but I'm sure it will be another amazing topic. So until next time, I will see you all on the high seas or wherever travels may take us. Until then, bye for now.
Bye-bye.